First of all, thank you very much to the sponsor, Muimbi, Rapid Circle, and also to the organization, PUNTech community. I see that you are growing very fast, so it's amazing that all around the world the interest in the business application and this field of Microsoft is growing so fast. Just a few words about me. As I said, I'm the founder and CEO of Logolab, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP on business application. I have a technical background because I started as a software engineer. Then I grow my career like in managerial roles, and then I create my own company that is a Logo. And I'm also the founder of xrme.net, that is an European community with a strong focus on the business application. And I'm also a member of the Mensa. What we are going to speak today is advanced behavioral clustering with artificial intelligence in order to leverage it inside, I would say, customer engagement. We don't use anymore this name, customer engagement, but I like it because with this name, I can, let's say, I can target application like Dynamics365 sales, marketing, and all these applications will be involved in this demo. That's why I want to use again this name. At the beginning, we are going to speak a little bit of artificial intelligence because this is an event with a strong focus in the business application. So I want to be sure that everybody have a little background on artificial intelligence, and then we will have a lot of theory on how I would like to tackle this topic. Because in this case, it's not a matter of technology. We have enough technology in order to do that. But the most difficult part is to, let's say, approach the problem and understand to switch from the theory to a practical test. If you have any question, you can put inside the chat, and I will be able to respond at the end of my session to your question. So don't hesitate to write into the chat. Okay, so can you write into the chat if you have, starting from 1 to 5, which is your knowledge about artificial intelligence? Type into the chat one number from 1 to 5. 3. Great. Just one 3. Okay. Yeah. So let's do again. So I started to work with artificial intelligence like 10 years ago, but at that stage, it was not so easy because it was very a niche technology. And in the last few years, AI has beaten all the expectation. Just to give you some example, these on the left side, on the right side, so in 2017 and 2016, artificial intelligence has beaten the human in 2 games, in the poker and in the game of Go, that are very sophisticated games in terms of complexity. And for the first time, the AI won against a human. And then in 2018, we know very well that one very important person, that is Elon Musk, invested a lot of money in a company like OpenAI that is leveraging all the latest technology in order to, let's say, democratize artificial intelligence. And we are going to use some of, let's say, input and knowledge of OpenAI in order to build our demo. But when we are speaking about artificial intelligence, is a huge sea. So we have to understand where we want to focus today in order to understand which part of the artificial intelligence we want to use. So if we think to artificial intelligence like there is a Russian word that is matryoshka. Matryoshka is like several doors, and each door is inside another door. So we have to think that artificial intelligence is the main content. Then we have machine learning. Then, in order to leverage machine learning, we can use neural networks. Another deeper technology is the deep learning. So we are with deep learning, we can use several approaches. And in this case, we are going to use a GAN approach. But when we are speaking about artificial intelligence, we have to think that we have three main stages that we have to follow in order to reach a result. First of all, we need data, as much data as possible, because it's like in business intelligence. No, if you have just few samples, it's not easy to get the result and output. So we need a lot of data. We need a model to apply to our data in order to get insight, and then we need a training strategy. Okay, so we have to train our model in the data in order to get a result. It's a very simple step, but we have to follow all these three stages. And then we can speak about behavior. So the goal of our session and our demo is to have a target of people, maybe some contacts in our CRM, and then cluster this target of people according to their behavior. Okay, so try to imagine that we have 10,000 people in our CRM, and we want to understand how to approach them. Okay, so in order to understand how to approach them, we have to understand their behavior. And in order to understand behavior, we have to speak about personality. And Carl Gustav Jung was the first person that studied the personality of people and tried to create a model in order to approach it. Because if you think that we have 10,000 people, it's impossible that we have a custom approach for each person in our target. We have in some way to create some clusters and to put people inside. When we have defined the cluster and we have identified how to connect people to the cluster, then we can, let's say, leverage our technology, in this case, Dynamics365 sales, in order to consume this cluster, okay? And the Jung theory, it's very easy because it's based basically on two different assumptions. So considering a human, we have a stage that is perceiving, where we take information from the environment, and then we have a stage named judging. Then we make decision. So if you think that we have as input some information that we use in order to take a decision. And inside these two first clusters that are perceiving and judging, we have two possibilities. There are people that are more sense-oriented, so they act and they perceive through sensing, and there are people that perceive through intuition. When we have to act, there are people that prefer to think, and then there are people that prefer to feel. Okay, this is very important in order to understand how to create our clusters. Okay, and then after this approach, there is a person that is Isabel Brings-Myers that after these studies understood how to use these studies in order to have a mathematical approach and define a model in order to cluster the people. Okay, and she studies a lot for 20 years, and then as a result, she understood that in order to create our cluster, you can see here, so we have 4 columns and 4 rows. So it means 16 boxes, 16 clusters. We have to work on what we have seen before. So we have the possibility to have people that are extrovert versus introverts. And in this case, we speak about source of energy. Then there are people that are more sensing versus intuition. So this is a way of gathering information. Then this is the stage of act. So in decision making, we have more thinking versus feeling. And then we have how relating to the external world, we have judgment versus perception. Okay, these are the axes that contribute to build our 16 categories that are our personality types. Okay, so our goal is to create a cluster of 16 personality types. Okay, and for example, in this case, we have ESTJ. It means that in this cluster, we have people that are extrovert. They get information with the sense. They think when they make decision, and they judge when to have to relate to the external world. Okay, and in this way you can build all these 16 clusters. If you have to group, because the idea is to have the first stage, and we will see soon, of our solution will be to define the cluster inside our system and classify our people, okay? But then we have to act according to this cluster. What does it mean? It means that, for example, if you want to have a marketing campaign from our system, and we want to send a different email to each cluster in order to better fit the requirement of these people, okay, we have in some way to understand each of this cluster. And in order to do that, we can classify these 16 personality types, grouping them into 4 temperaments. So we can say that people that are in the cluster with N and T, okay, that are this Y, are more rational. So they are abstract and objective. They seeking mastery and self-control. They concern with knowledge and competence, and their greatest strength is strategy. And they like to conceptualize, theorize, and coordinating. So when we approach a communication with them, we have to take in consideration this stuff. Then there are people that are N and F, okay? So in this case, they are idealists. So they are more abstract and compassionate. They have other characteristics. Then people with SMP, okay, that have these 2 letters, S and MP, you can see here. Okay, this cluster are named artisan. Okay, they are concrete and adaptable. Then they have several other characteristics. No, they like to troubleshoot, they like agility, they like tool manipulation, and so on. Then there are the last one that are S and J that are named guardian. It means that they are concrete and organized. They seek security and belonging. So it means that if you want to approach them with the communication, you can't say to them, I want to change a word, because they are seeking security. So you have to prefer, you must prefer a communication where you say we have solid products and then we are a strong company and so on, these kind of messages. Okay, this is very important because it's where we are gonna to shape our communication. Then I'm an engineer, and this is a technical conference. So at the end of the story, we are gonna to build an engine. So our source will be user data, and in our demo, it will be composed by email, okay? Then we have a predictor that is a model able to predict the MBTI class of each person. This will be provided as output, the MBTI type of this person, in this case, our CRM contact. Then we have an actuator. Okay, it means that we are gonna to consume this information. Okay, for example, inside a marketing campaign. Then we have an output. Okay, because usually people respond to a marketing campaign. We will collect this as an input, and we will provide it back to our system in order to, let's say, define in a better way the type. Okay, this is a retroactive model where we are gonna to improve the accuracy of the definition of the MBTI type of each person. Is it clear so far? Do you have any question? Okay. So, in order to understand how to build our predictor, we said that we want to use the email that each contact of our CRM send to our system. We have in some way to understand how to extract the MBTI type from the email that we collect inside our system. And in order to do that, we have to use a template where we have a correlation between different words and the MBTI type. Okay? In order to do that, there is the possibility to leverage on some tables that can be used in order to build our predictor. For example, you can see here different words that are correlated in this way with this ladder of our MBTI model. Okay, so this column is introvert versus extrovert. We can see, for example, that if we use a word like quiet, is correlated in a negative way with introvert, and then again in a negative way with this cluster, and so on. You have to consider when you are gonna to build your model, and we use Python in our demo. You have to consider that an R square greater than 0.1 is considered to be a good predictor. Okay. Otherwise, necessary to combine several words to get a significant score. Okay. But in general, you have to consider that the best way to do that is to use a semantic distance meter. Okay, so in this way you can catch all the words inside your email, but and WS4J is the best model that we can use. But based on our experience, if you transcode your table by yourself, you can reach better result. Okay. And then you have to consider also another important part, because when you are gonna to cluster people inside your type, they are not equally distributed. Okay, as we have seen, if we compare how we get energy, so extrovert versus introvert, we can consider that all around the world we have a majority of people that are introverts versus extrovert. Okay, and when we are in a cognitive function, we can see that there are people that prefer, that act with sensing, with a percentage of 73%, versus people that are more intuitive, and in this case we have 26%. Okay, and this is the distribution of people across our cluster, considering the global population worldwide. Okay, so just to give you an example, I'm an ENTJ, so 1.8% of the population all around the world is in this cluster. Okay, this is very important when we have to shape to fine-tune the accuracy of our model. Then in the first stage, we understood how to map people in our cluster, but then we have to consume this information. And in this case, we have to create an actuator. Okay, the actuator in our idea is to understand what motivates people. Okay, so in order to understand it, we can use this relation. Okay, so for example, if we have all some types before, but the last part is a J instead of a P, you have to consider that people with J are motivated to be right. Okay, so do the right things, and rigorousness and the ethics, and they like honesty and justice. They are reformer. And based on this combination, we can understand how to shape our, for example, newsletter for a marketing campaign, okay? Considering the ladder inside the cluster. So we have the reformer, we have the helper, the achiever, the individualist, the investigator, the loyalties. So if we want to work in a loyalty program, we have to invest on people that are in the cluster ES and J. And then there are the enthusiast, the challenger, and the peacemaker. Another important part is the feedback, okay, that we collect from the responses that we receive. And then in this case, we have to understand that one of the most important part is extroversion versus introversion, okay, in general. Try to imagine that we are working as our output, not in the marketing campaign, but in a chatbot. And we want to consider how the chatbot should engage people during the conversation. For sure, if you engage all the people in the same way, the possibility that the communication inside the chatbot will drop soon is very high, because when you speak with people, you want to have in front of you someone that more or less has your same approach, no? And for the chatbot, it should be the same. So if we understood that in front of us there is an introvert, we should use some words and an approach that can fit easily with an introvert person. Okay, that's why it's important also the feedback. And you have to consider that if you consider extrovert versus introvert, extrovert they talk freely to anyone about themselves. They prefer to communicate in person or on the phone. So if you want to engage, you have, for example, you have your sales people, and you have to say to them how to approach each contact in the CRM. You can say, okay, this person is classified as an extrovert, so call him instead to send an email, okay? And then they prefer to receive input from many people than just one person. So probably the meeting should be driven by 2 or 3 people, and they tend to often interrupt the interlocutor. So these are all stuff that we have to consider when we want to leverage our information. And for the introvert, they only talk freely about themselves to those they trust. So they prefer to communicate in writing, including email. They prefer one-to-one communication, and they tend to let you finish the sentence before they answer, okay? Taking into consideration all these input, we can shape our communication channel with people. Doesn't matter if it's the marketing campaign, a visit, if it's a newsletter. We can shape the communication in a better way, okay? And here you can see some recommendation if you want to leverage a chatbot that gets as input the behavior of each people. Then we have another difference between type. For example, the guardians that we have seen before are assertive, so they are very goal-oriented. And then if you want to understand how to spot them, we have to understand that they speak in declarative sentences rather than an asking question, okay? And in a louder than average tone. They look for animated and confident body language, such as leaning forward or gesturing when they speak. So try to imagine if you are able to provide all this information to the salesperson inside your company. How can you increase the conversion rate of your sales? This is really important. And then you can see a lot of information here about, for example, assertive people, okay? For the artisan, we can see how to spot them, okay? They are great listeners and might ask more personal questions in an attempt to get to know you outside of your role. They will be friendly, calm, and patient during the meetings, and the conversation with them are generally laid back and informal, okay? So if you want to sell something to them, pitch a vision, take time, to feel safe, take the role of an expert, and act as an advisor. Okay. The rational are, the idealists are expressive. And if you want to spot them, tend to be very enthusiastic and colorful. They'll want to bond with you and feel connected to a personal level. They are sure of their beliefs and speak more in a statement rather than a question. Okay. Also, again, try to imagine that you are building a marketing campaign. You want to send an email to them, and then you can understand here that you can write your email more with statement than questions. And it can make the difference in your conversion. It can increase a lot the conversion rate. Okay, in this case, you don't make offhand commitments, and then if you want to sell them, they are people pleasers, and you have to present case studies. You can emphasize ongoing relationship and don't focus too much on facts and figures. Then we have some consideration on the last part that is related to the rationals that are analytic. Okay, I'm rational, I'm very analytic. So if you want to spot me, you have to be, they are less expressive than the other personal type. They are concerned with facts rather than emotion. They are serious, direct, and formal. So the communication must be like this one. And they might not use expressive gesturing in meetings, but they listen intently. Okay, if you want to sell something to me, be prepared to field a lot of detailed questions. Never rush me. Assume that they are prepared, so that I'm prepared, and avoid making high-level claims, and don't try to force a relationship. Okay, this is very important if you want to sell something to rational people. The architecture of our model will be managed like this one. Okay, you have to consider that we can start from a marketing or sales application inside Dynamics365. We will focus on the contact entity, and we will leverage some activities of the contact entity, in this case the email, but we can enrich the input that we provide to our model, consuming, for example, the chat that we have inside customer service or other tool in order to collect data from our contact. Okay, so we can provide email, we can provide chatbot, we can provide what we want. Then we will collect everything inside this customer data, and then we will call an Azure service where we have deployed a Python model in order to classify the information. So according to the table that I showed you before, we are gonna to map the wording of people in order to understand the behavior. We have this correlation table. And then this Azure AI Azure service will provide as output the personality type of our contact, and we will store is in a new field of a contact entity inside the CRM. This new field will be used in order to cluster our marketing campaign and to provide a different communication to our target. It's really important to understand that we have three main stages for the clustering stage, but at the high level, we have two main stages, the clustering stage and the consumption stage. So in the clustering stage, we have to collect different information. As I said before, it can be mail, chat, or we can get information, gather information from the social network. We have to run an AI engine in order to cluster the contact entity. This is the stage of the clustering. And then we have to store. So we have to store the MBTI profile of our contact inside the system. Then we have the consumption stage. So as soon as we have defined the MBTI type of our contact, we can define our approach in the consumption stage. Try to imagine that we want to stay in a digital world. Then, if we are speaking about marketing campaign, we have the possibility to create a dedicated marketing campaign according to specified cluster. If you are speaking about the newsletter, we have the possibility to consume different dedicated mail template according to the specific cluster. Okay, you are in a company, you have a 16 cluster. You want to reduce the cluster for the marketing, for example, only to 2, introvert or extrovert. You have your marketing department. You can ask them to prepare 2 different newsletters, one for the introvert and one for the extrovert. And then you can run your marketing campaign using as a filter the field that you have defined just a few steps before. Then try to imagine that you want to work with a chatbot. You have the possibility to consume different chatbot tree interaction according to the specific cluster. This is very important in order to maintain the link with your end user inside the chatbot. If we switch from a digital world to a physical world, we can speak about the physical retail. And in this case, we have the possibility to provide a real-time insight to the front-end workforce according to the specific cluster. Try to imagine that you have a loyalty card and you can understand which person, the name of the person that is in front of you, like in a shop, maybe not in all the shop, the retail shop, but for example, if we are speaking about a top level shop, you know the name and the surname of the client in front of you. And then inside the CRM, you can easily understand how this person is clustered, for example, according to our MBTI types. And then you can train your sales force in order to have a different approach with client according to the MBTI type. Everything is clear? Do you understand the goal of our session and our idea? You can write into the chat. Don't be shy. Okay, so if this part is clear, we can go into the demo. Okay, so we can see our clustering in action. Are you confident with Python? I assume yes. Okay, just let me start from here. Great. So this is our Dynamics365. I decided to use a sales hub, but you can start from example from marketing or from other application of Dynamics ecosystem. Also project operation doesn't matter. The important point is that we have to focus on the context entity. And in this case, the context entity are enriched through a solution that I call the behavioral clustering. Okay. So I put inside the solution the contact entity. And in this case, I worked on a field, a new field. That I named MBTI. It's an option set that is defined as following. Okay, so I defined all my type here accordingly to the information that I provided to you just a few minutes ago. And then I create inside the form, I included a new field here. Is this one, MBTI, and I also modified my my active contacts view in order to enrich the view with this new column. Okay, so very basic operation inside the CRM. Now, I already ran the model on all these contacts, and then the system provided to me this classification, okay, for each contact. For this one, the first one, I deleted the information because during our demo, we are going to see how the system will work on this part, okay? The next part that we have to consider is that I decided to use also Power Automate. And in this case, I worked with the Cloudflow, okay? An automated Cloudflow. And this flow is very easy as well, because inside the flow, I decided to work with a few basic concepts. So every time that I receive an email, I forward the email to the our Azure function that is like a Python function that will run a model that I will show to you soon in order to get the classification, and accordingly to the output of the get of this HTTPS call, I'm gonna to update a row inside our Dataverse. So I decide, you know better than me that now it's better to directly work on Dataverse instead that to work on the previous connector of Dynamics if you want to update some fields related to Dynamics. In this case, I wanted to update the fields that the field that I showed you before, MBTI field. So I'm gonna to use Dataverse in order to do that, okay, using the entity content. And then another important part of this solution is related to the Python. Okay, so here there is the mapping between what we have seen before. So actually, I have to manage the correlation inside the documents. Okay, so I have to search the word that I have in my correlation table. And an important step, as we have seen in our presentation here, just let me switch back to the presentation, is to consider the correlation table, okay, that I showed you here. Just, okay, here. It's very important in order to understand how to run the model, okay? So I would say 40% of this project is related to the accuracy of the table. And another important point is that you have to work also in semantic search. Why? Because if you have a table, try to imagine that you create a table with 3,000 names and the correlation with the MBTI type according to this model, to this one, okay, to this correlation table. The possibility that inside the email of your client there is a word like this one is low. So in order to increase the accuracy of the model, what I did is to use the semantic search, okay? For example, try to imagine that we are gonna to speak to business, okay? But there is no exactly the word business inside the email. I will use a semantic search in order to search words that are similar to business, are not exactly business, but are similar to business. And the semantic search can help you in order to do that. So the Python model is able to get the word of that we have in our correlation table, to search the word inside the email using leveraging a semantic search approach. Okay, this is very important. So inside the model, we have the possibility to, inside the Python code, we have the possibility to see, to get this information. As soon as we have this information, we can easily switch on our MBTI analyzer. Okay, so this is the flow that we have seen before. And then here we are in Microsoft Azure. We have an app service that I configured in order to run in a subscription in order to run a Python code. You can reach a specific URL. And then inside the app service, there is the Python code that I showed to you before. Okay, so actually the model is very simple. You are in CRM, you receive an email. When you receive an email, the email is will trigger a flow. The flow will send the content of the email to our model, to our app service in Microsoft Cloud. The app service will run a Python code. Python code will manage the correlation of the content in order to provide back to you the ID of the MBTI type in order to be stored inside the Dataverse on the content entity. Okay. As soon as you have this information, we can do the next step. That is this one. here we are. We can switch on the marketing list. In this case, I create 2 marketing lists, but you can be more accurate, like using 16 type of the cluster. And I say that to the system that, for example, the Extrovert marketing campaign is defined in a dynamic way by members, and in this case, the members are managed in the next way. So I define members like a contact where the MBTI type begins with E. Okay, so in this case, the system automatically classify our contact in this way. And then I did the same for the introvert. So also here, I defined a new marketing campaign named Introvert, that this marketing campaign has its channels, maybe like email or maybe, let's say, a portal or something like that. And then the campaign is named Mail to Introvert. And also here, if you go to contacts, you can see that the MBTI type begins with he in this case. This is our flow. Okay, so right now I will gonna to my email in order to send a standard email, try to simulate to be a client. Okay, just a moment. Let me open here. I have my email. Okay, I have my draft email here. I prepare this email and then I send, and we are gonna to see what will happen here. As soon as I will receive my email in my Outlook, I decide to use this connector Outlook, but you can easily use, for example, as a trigger the condition a new activity in Dynamics. So every time that you have a new activity of type email in Dynamics, you have you can run the flow. The advantage is that you don't need to make any logic inside the association of the MBTI type to the contact when the Azure function provide the ID, because you already have the link between the email and the contact, because it's already managed by Dynamics. No, every time that you receive an email in Dynamics, if you have a server-side sync enabled, the system automatically connected the email to a contact inside the CRM. Okay, so in this case, if you use this trigger, you have the advantage that you don't have inside the code of the Dataverse to understand which email, the connection between this email and the contact is already done by Dynamics. It's an advantage. You can store this information in your flow and consume when you have the get from the Azure function. What is happening inside our system? Just let me check if it's consuming. Is that the flow is running? So if I see my history, the history of the flow, 1 minute ago, here we are. This is the flow that ran 1 minute ago. And then soon we can see in our Azure function that there is a new call. Here we are. This is the call of our Azure function. Okay. Great. So I'm consuming my credit in Azure. And then soon we can see that inside our contact, I can show to you here. Now there is, this field is filled. Okay. It means that we have sent an email. The email triggered our Microsoft, our Power Automate flow. The flow called the Azure function. The Azure function runs the Python model, Python model analyze the content of the email, and then the Azure function give back this information to the flow. The flow searching dataverse, which is the contact, the email, the relation between email and contact, identify the contact and modify the field of contact according to what he received from the Azure function. Then our sales or marketing people can easily consume the marketing list, providing different content to people. You have to consider that one part, we have another part in our model, because we have seen here that we have also feedback, okay? So what is possible to implement here is the possibility to increase the accuracy of this information inside the contact, okay? Try to imagine that you are here in the contact section, and the first iteration, the system understood that this person, that is Alex Baker, has an MBTI type that is ESTP. But if you think that every mail will trigger our flow, but in general, all the conversation with this person will trigger our flow, for example, as I said before, try to imagine that you can provide as input not only the email, but a chatbot, or for example, like in a ticketing system of the service desk, some information. We can see that this value may change in the future because we have more information. And as we have seen before in our presentation, here, just let me go here. It was one of the first slides of our presentation. Here we are. We have a training strategy. So we have trained our Python model, but we are using data. And as much data as we have, we can reach a better result. So every time that we receive an email, our model will run. And it provides a result to our output, that is the field in CRM, that it will increase in accuracy for every mail. This is a very important part because it's a retroactive. It is a retroactive model. It's not a one-way model. The model that we design. Okay, so I completed the demo. Just let me stop the sharing and put my presentation here. Okay. Great. So we have completed the demo. I hope that you like this, you appreciated this session. I tried not to be I tried to have a balance between the business part, the modeling part, and the technical part. Because based on my experience, one of the issues of our category is that we focus strong only on the technical part. And what we do is not what people need. In this session, I try to start from a business problem, okay? So because this is a real business problem, help our sales people and our CRM or marketing people to be more accurate in the communication. And I create end-to-end from the beginning of the issue to the resolution of the issue, a story, okay? So I try to be balanced between the business and technical part. I don't know if you have any question on this part. You want to deep dive in some specific topic? We have a few minutes. Just write into the chat if you have any question.